record on this. So here I am again with Jordan Turner. We're talking proper property management. And just before we get going, on the main part of our day, Jordan, we just dealt with an issue which I think would be useful to record as well. We have a tenant in one of our buildings where Jordan is the property manager, where a tenant is not paying rent. And in Ontario, where both Jordan and I live, evicting a tenant is a long process. You issue an N4, which is an eviction notice for cause. There's a rental tribunal, landlord-tenant board that hears these things. They're so backed up that it's probably anywhere from 6 to 10 months before we actually get in front of the board. And then usually the board will give the tenant that's in arrears opportunity to extend for some time for one reason or another. So it could be a year to get a tenant out. This particular tenant is now 2 months in arrears, which this is a small studio apartment, $1,600 plus utilities. So it's probably $3,200 now, plus I guess a couple of $100 of utilities. That's the current background. So we just had a conversation with the tenant. And what we suggested is that she needs assistance at this point, I think, from her parents. And if she would bring her rent in on the 1st of October and pay the back utilities, in October, we could then explore other alternatives. We're trying to help her out, but also help ourselves out. And so maybe in October, she decides she wants to move out, which would be fine. If she does not pay anything, which is quite possible in this case, then what Jordan and I started to talk about, or did talk about before we started recording this, is sometime in October, probably around the middle of October, if she hasn't paid anything, which is likely, we are going to offer her money to move. Because to wait 6 months or 10 months or a year to get this apartment back just means that every month we're losing $1,600 plus utilities. That's a lot of money for a poor professor like me and a poor property manager like Jordan. We need people to pay their rent. So we will end up losing, if it's 12 months, we'll end up losing $20,000. And who knows what the apartment might look like at the end of the tenancy. So it might require quite some work. So in sometime in October, if there are no payments at all, Jordan is going to offer her $1,600 in cash. He's going to put it in an envelope and wave it in front of her to sign an N11, which is a mutual termination of lease. And the one advantage for her to do that, other than she would get some cash to help her with her move, is that we would also agree not to report her arrears to a credit agency. Because if we report her arrears to a credit agency, that'll crush her credit rating for some period of time, maybe up to 7 years. And so she has some incentive, I think, to cooperate with us. But having said that, we also will say to her that she cannot get a reference from us, because I don't want to pass on a tenant who's in arrears to another landlord, another rental provider. And, if we gave her a good reference, which we would not do, it would be false. And we don't want to do that. Are you in agreement with all of that?
Absolutely.
All right. And Jordan, if you don't mind saying just for the record, what you said about, she's lost her job. She has no support. She has no social assistance. Maybe she gets support from mom and dad. We don't know yet. But you did say something about social assistance, which I thought was beautiful and well said. And I think it'd be worthwhile repeating here.
Yeah, it's just, I feel that a lot of people would feel there's a stigma around looking for help, whether it's social assistance or any help of the sort financially. But, everybody finds themselves in difficult times throughout their life. And I think that stigma is really just an error in their perception of the situation. We all look at how we're perceived by others, and she doesn't want to be perceived as someone who has to rely on the government to help her live. But if she can get that help and get back onto her feet, back on stable grounds, and start working again, and then start to support herself again, and there's nothing negative about her accepting the help.
Yeah, I just thought that was really something that was timely. I mean, she was crying on the phone, and when Jordan said that, you know, I thought it was beautifully put and well meant. I mean, we're all human beings at the end of the day. We still need to make money. We need to pay our mortgage. We need to pay our bills. You know, we need to pay our rent. So we need our tenants to help us with that. But at the same time, she is a human being, and I thought that was well put. And I agree with that. You know, I loved. I don't know if you just said it, but you also said something about if somebody tells you they've never had a down moment in their life, just repeat that comment too.
Oh, yeah, I mean, but it was you, as you were referring to me, potentially not having any difficult times, and I just said, like, absolutely, everybody has difficult times in their life, and if they tell you that they haven't, they're either lying to you or they're lying to themselves.
That was well said. All right, I'm just going to send our current plan, which I typed out to Dawn. So I'll just send that. Our action plan, our Lindsay, our action plan. All right, enough said. That's enough. Okay, now we're going to get back to proper property management. And well, this is all part of property management. It's probably one of the least pleasant parts of property management. But you know, if you have 100 tenants, no matter, I mean, this person was 8 years with the previous landlord, had a very good track record of paying her rent, and obviously something serious has happened and intervened in the case. So even though Jordan and I and Dawn, my wife Dawn, had checked her references and they were good references, doesn't matter how careful you are, you will get, you know, hopefully not 1 out of 12, but you'll get 1 out of 20 or 1 out of 40 bad tenants. And if you get a bad tenant, and it makes you angry, you're going to be angry all the time. Because I don't care how smart you are, you know, Jordan, I know you're a very bright guy. If you do 100 leases in the next few years, some of those, maybe 3 or 4 of them, will, even though they got great references like this woman did, will be terrible. And what I say to people is, don't get mad, just go through the process, negotiate as best you can, and see if you can resolve it as quickly as possible without getting angry, and then just fix it and go on. Otherwise, you can't be in this business, Jordan.
Yeah, and I mean, at the end of the day, like you said, we're all people, but also some people are pretty vindictive, and if they're in a position where they feel threatened and you push too hard, you take that anger to heart and you push too hard, then I mean, they're likely going to push back and stay there without paying. And like you said, right now the landlord tenant board is so backed up that they'll just take advantage of you for the next 6 to 10 months.
Yeah. Yeah, I hadn't really thought of that, but I like that as well. Okay. So Jordan, you sent me a very good agenda. I really liked it for today. And I thought I would start with at the end of your agenda, which is Jordan asked me something which no other property manager has ever asked me. And what are the performance metrics or the financial metrics for actually evaluating your performance? Nobody's asked me that question. And I thought that was really good, Jordan. I mean, I wanted to give you a high five for that. So earlier this morning, I started working on that. What are the financial metrics involved in evaluating property performance? Whether you're evaluating the actual performance of the property or the property manager or both, I think they're very similar. Okay. And so some of these things are very obvious. Oops, excuse me, I went to the wrong slide there. Some of these things you already know. So for most investors, landlords, rental, housing providers, commercial, industrial, the 2 key metrics, financial metrics, are cap rates and internal rates of return. All right.
Yep.
And you know what a cap rate is, right?
Yep.
All right. So just for the recording, cap rates are very simple to understand. If Jordan and I buy a duplex together for $500,000 and we rent the upstairs and the downstairs for say $4,000 a month, all right? And Jordan is a rich dude, so he just you know, says, "Hey, I got $500,000 in cash. I found it in my couch last night." And so we pay $500,000 for a duplex, and we rent it for $4,000 a month for the upstairs and the downstairs, maybe $2,500 for the upstairs and $1,500 for the downstairs. So that gives us a total income, gross income a year of 4,000 times 12, which is $48,000. That's our gross operating income. And then we talked about it before, Jordan, about 34% of that goes out the window for property taxes, property insurance, repairs and maintenance, property management, insurance, all the things, nothing to do with a mortgage, because remember, we paid cash for our building, right?
Yep.
So if we multiply 48,000 of gross operating income for the year by 0.66, it means we've subtracted 34%, right? For operating expenses. So I multiply that by 0.66, it gives us about $31,000 or $32,000 of net operating income. Now, we spent $500,000 for the building, so we divide that by 500,000, we get a cap rate of about 6.3%. So it means that on the $500,000 that you put in the bank today, you probably could get 4 or even 5%. 2 years ago it would have been 1 or 2%, but today you can probably get 4 or 5%. So in this imaginary duplex, we're doing a little bit better. That's what a cap rate is. Internal rate of return is different, and you can see there's a YouTube video training of mine on there, which I'll put in the, when I put these things on YouTube, I'll put these links in there so you can find them if you want. And internal rate of return is what professional analysts use as opposed to cap rates. Cap rates are very useful, but they're not the only thing, because cap rates only measure one thing, which is cash flow. And you hope if you buy a duplex, that $500,000 duplex, maybe in the next year or two, as we're experiencing difficulties in the industry, it won't go up very much in value, might even go down. But maybe 10 years from now, it might be $600,000. Cap rates don't measure the increase in value, right? They just measure the cash flow. So internal rates of return measure 3 returns. Your cash returns every year, if you have some, positive or negative. Your increase in value over a period of time, and also your mortgage pay down. If we had a mortgage on this building, really our tenants are helping to pay that down, right? It's not really coming from us. It's coming, at least in part or in whole, from our tenants, right? So you've got 3 returns for an investor or an owner, right? And the internal rate of return is kind of like a weighted average of those 3. So it's the internal rate of return that makes you wealthy, and it's the cap rate that makes you rich, right? Rich because you got a little bit of cash, hopefully, in your jeans every month. The internal rate of return, though, is really a measures at least partly wealth generation, which is increase in value and decrease in mortgage. And of course, your cash flow. So those are the 2 most important financial metrics in our industry. The next one, and by the way, if you go on these YouTube videos, there's some simple spreadsheets you can download that help you learn how to do that. So you could do that. So if you end up with, like one of my friends, with 700 doors that you're managing, and it could be commercial buildings, no different, or obviously residential, you want to measure cap rates, keep track of them for your clients and for yourself, and internal rate of return. And you'll see I put in brackets there the animation stuff, right? So if Jordan is now an expert in animation ideas, and if you can, maybe take if you had a 12-unit building and you put 2 of them on short-term rentals, maybe the cap rates will go up, right? Maybe it'll be a little bit better. Or if you bought an inexpensive workshop, you put it in the backyard, that might be a good thing too, to boost cap rates and maybe internal rate of return. All right. So animation ideas can actually help you over time drive those cap rates up and internal rates of return. And one thing you should do is you should brag to your clients every year, once a year or once every 2 years. Look what I've done. When you bought it, I put up rents. I did some animation ideas, and you bought it. You had a 5% cap rate. Now you have a 6% cap rate. That's a big increase. All right. The next thing you want to look at is occupancy rates and vacancies, right? So if you have a 12-unit building and half of your units are vacant, shoot yourself, right? Right now, office buildings, they say their vacancy rates are about 15%, but that's only until some of the leases that have been signed in the past run out, it wouldn't surprise me in many downtowns if office vacancy rates hit 40 or even 45%. And if you had 40 or 45% vacancies, whether it's office buildings, industrial buildings, a residential portfolio, you're in real trouble. Office buildings are in terrible trouble. So you want to, measure that. So maybe you take over a building that has some tenants that are not paying, or some vacant units, and then you fill them up. That's something you can monitor, right? The next thing is pretty obvious too. I'm not very good at this, but some of the people who are in the property management industry are very good at that. They track their operating expenses, all the things I mentioned earlier in this moment, in this call, on this slide. Typically, they are 34% of gross operating income. On a new building, they might be 25 or 30%, because you would hope that you don't have as many repairs and maintenance as you do on an older building. So if you can drive down the OPEX without cutting your property management fees, right? Because what I've tried to get through to you, and I think I have, as we do this course together, it is, property managers should be properly paid, and they are worth their weight in gold if they're any good, right?
Yeah.
So if you can, maybe you take over an older building and OPEX are 34%, and then 2 years later it's 32%. That tells, you can pat yourself on the back. I don't know if you know this one. Do you know what common area is?
Well, I know what it is, but I don't know how it would contribute to the operating expenses.
All right,
I know we operate in our.
I'll show you. I'll show you one that'll blow your mind, and it'll be good to have it recorded, I think, as well. So when I was young, probably younger than you are now, I built this building in Ottawa. You'll see it here on Google Maps. All right. So this building here, can you see it has this sloped curtain wall roof?
Yeah.
Largest sloped curtain wall roof, I think, built ever in the city of Ottawa. And it has a huge, beautiful atrium and a feature stair, and it's just fantastic. This building here, I thought I was very proud of it back in the day when I built it. But it had, I think, 23% common area. So your gross floor area, about a fifth of it, or even a little bit more than that, was common area. Who has to pay to heat and clean and maintain that? Would be usually the landlord, right?
Yeah.
Maybe on triple net leases, you can get some of that paid by the tenants, but no tenant will pay the full amount. That is just too hard. So that was the first building I built, because I listened to my architect, who was more of an artist than he was a businessman, which is very typical of architects. And then a few years later, on the same site, I built what's called the Royal Bank Pavilion. The common area here is 10.5%. Less than half, I think, of what it was before. Right. So I am the living experience of what not to do with the buildings that you build. And it doesn't matter whether you're building a multi-res building or an office building, or for that matter, an industrial building. If you have too much common area, you got to heat that, you got to cool that, you got to clean that, you got to maintain it, you got to repair it.
Some operating expenses.
And it blows up your OPEX, right? All right, so let's go back here to this thing here. All right. So I thought that would be a good example for you of what not to do. And then the second one was much more successful financially. I'm still proud of the first building. It was called the Malorne Center, and the second one, the Royal Bank Pavilion, but probably wouldn't have been something I would do ever again. And I don't think you should either. So common area costs are something you should track. How much of that can you get the tenants to pay? Because on a triple net lease, you can often get the tenants to pay some of those common area charges, maybe all of them. But tenants will push back when you get above 10 or 11% common area. Maybe 12% would be acceptable, but 22 or whatever it was is not.
Paying for a quarter of the building.
Big pardon? Yeah, it probably was a quarter of the building by the time you added up all the other common area, like the bathrooms and the corridors and the elevator shafts. Oh my God, maybe it was 25 or 26%. I don't really remember. So common area cost, you should track that. common area itself, you should track that, and what percentage of your operating expenses and gross floor area are going towards common area. And if you can keep that down or find a way to get your tenants to pay more of that. One of the things I did with that big atrium was I put in little kiosks, which I started to rent after I realized I had screwed up by listening to my architect. So I started putting in these little kiosks where people could sell technology products, or I think we had like a cafe in there and some other stuff. So I started filling up the common area with paying clients, but that was kind of a Band-Aid approach.
Good solution.
Well, it was the only thing I could think of, and it did work. And the other thing I think that would be very important, and I just thought of it this morning after you asked me the question, is keep track of deferred maintenance. I was talking to one of the property managers who does have 700 doors under property management now, and he's having a devil of a time with some of his landlords who won't even replace the batteries in like CO or CO2 detectors. I guess it's carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide?
Yeah, it's the mix. Yeah.
Yeah. And I said, well, you're kidding me. I mean, that is not a good idea, right? Or if the smoke detector just isn't working, it doesn't matter whether it's a battery or not. But some landlords are very cheap. So what he has been doing is he's been firing some of those landlords.
And he's in the position to do so, right? That's the position you need to find yourself in if you're going to operate.
Yeah, exactly. But you know, as a property manager, you do have a duty of care to your tenants. Yeah. And you know, if you find that there's a smoke detector, carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide detector that isn't working, and your landlord refuses to pay to replace it, you have to really think about whether you want to continue.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Now, if the deferred maintenance is that the roof might last another year, might spring a leak, but might last another year, you could, you know, maybe you could defer that. But I do think you should keep track of deferred maintenance, because that is the enemy of success in our business.
Yeah,
If it gets ahead of you, you're really in trouble. Something else I thought too that would be worthwhile, and this is a link to look at, is maybe every couple of years you might do a tenant satisfaction survey. And so maybe when you take over a building, you might run a survey, and you know, on a scale from 1 to 10, maybe the building scores a 6. And then 2 years later, after you took over property management, it scores an 8. That's a good thing to know. So I like that. And the other thing I put in here was environmental factors. Because there's so much attention by tenants, by cities, to what's going on with climate change, that I thought you might also decide to do an environmental audit of sorts, right? You might keep track of the kinds of things that are making sense today. Are there things that you could do to green a building for a landlord? Is there ways to prevent heat loss or heat gain, right? Extra insulation. Maybe today you replace some of the inefficient units with reverse cycle heat pumps like we have at the Burroughs building. Maybe it might make sense to do some rainwater collection and reuse. Do you know what a solar air wall is?
A solar air roll?
Yeah.
No.
All right, see if I can find one. I probably can't find one easily, so I'll wave my hands in the air. So these are really, really simple things to do. Let's say you have a house or an industrial building and it faces south, so that the sun shines on this wall. What can be done? It's very, very simple to do. Is you put basically you put something that's 2 panes of glass. And on this side, maybe it's only 1 pane of glass, and on this side, it's painted black. So the sun goes through the glass, hits the black, and there's this column of air that gets heated. It goes up like that into the house, into the property, right? And obviously, you close that during the summer when it's 100 degrees Fahrenheit or whatever it is, 35 degrees Celsius. So you're not bringing heat into the building. But even in a very cold weather city like Ottawa, solar air walls work amazingly well, and they're so easy to do. I mean, you know, there's a little bit of technology in it. You have a fan that you run, but you can suck in an awful lot of warm air during the day when the sun is, even in February, in a place like Ottawa, even at
Are you
minus.
finding them used more in commercial buildings or these even these modern homes?
100%.
Way they look?
Certainly, you know, one of my clients has a humongous long industrial building, and he put solar air walls all the way down that. And like I said, even, and it's in Ottawa, even in February, he can pretty much heat his building with the damn things. It costs almost nothing.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's really, it's great. Believe it or not, again, in cold northern shelf cities like Ottawa, you know what solar hot water is, right? So you'll see these you'll see little tanks and tubes on the roof, again, roof facing south. You'll see these tanks, and they run they don't run water through it, but it's like a glycol, I think it is, through them, and they heat up, and it actually can heat the water in your hot water tank. And again, I mean, obviously in the Caribbean or Florida or Arizona during the summer, you get all your hot water from your solar hot water. But even again, in a cold northern shelf city like Ottawa, solar hot water actually has an ROI, which is pretty good.
Okay.
And then, of course, again, I don't have to tell you about solar power. You know that hardscaping could be, you know, gravel or pea gravel or decorative stone, could be pavers. A lot of people today are doing hardscaping as opposed to lawns. I mean, lawns you have to water and weed and feed and all that stuff and cut.
There's less upkeep.
Less upkeep, but it's also good for the environment. Like, I mean, if you take your typical, you know, gas-powered lawnmower.
Oh yeah.
You know, how much CO2 are you blowing into the atmosphere? Quite a bit, I would think.
Mhm.
And then how much of the waste that's coming out of the building is being recycled? You know, are you recycling plastics, glass, paper, organics, you know? So that's another metric, right? And the last one I put down here is the live work condition. And, you know, I mean, I've drilled it into you now that I really love the idea of having a house here and having a little workshop in the backyard. Or
Yeah, for
having
sure.
duplex or triplex here, and maybe having a couple of little workshops in the backyard so that people could live in your apartment and, you know, run a yoga practice in the backyard, or register massage therapy, or be a coach like me and have a little place to work in the backyard. And I just bought another workshop from North Country Sheds. I may have mentioned this to you. It was on sale for $12,900, including delivery plus HST. And I rented that to a client of mine for her workshop at $700 a month plus HST plus utilities. So the ROI is pretty good.
Yeah.
All right. And the other thing, the reason I put it under environmental factors is some time ago, I think when Stephen Harper was the Prime Minister of Canada, he ran something called the 1 ton challenge. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
All right. So it was on television, and Rick Mercer, who's a Canadian comedian, was the front man. And he's saying, Canadians, take the 1 ton challenge. Find ways to save 1 ton of CO2 a year. Go to this website, the 1 ton challenge website of the government of Canada. Figure out how to save 1 ton. Well, being an engineer like me, I'm probably the only Canadian who actually looked at the website. So I went to the government website. It must have been 50 or 60 pages long, and went through the whole damn thing. And there wasn't a single idea, not one single idea, Jordan, that I could find other than when your children are brushing their teeth using the hot water, turn the hot water off. So when you know, save a little hot water. Maybe you save a few micrograms of CO2 a year, but you certainly aren't going to save 1 ton of CO2. It's called greenwashing. Have you ever heard the term greenwashing?
No,
You know what whitewashing is, right?
I don't.
Okay, whitewashing is when you know, you say the election was stolen. I really should be president now because I got the votes. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. But if you didn't, then you're whitewashing it, right? You're basically BSing people.
Okay.
Greenwashing is the same, only it's greenwashing. So if you're, let's say I was a big oil company, you know, Exxon, and I say, you know, we planted 1,000 trees in Canada.
I just thinking about this example that you're about to say. Yeah.
Yeah, we planted 1,000 trees last year. Yay, Exxon, we're green. Well, 1,000 trees. Again, you're talking maybe more than micrograms, but maybe you're talking a few grams or even a few kilograms of CO2, but it's compared to just one friggin' oil well gushing net burning off natural gas. I mean, it's ridiculous. That's greenwashing.
Yeah, a buddy of mine works for Ellis Don, and he works on like the LEED certifications and whatnot. And he was discussing with me how the majority of these industrial companies in the factories get their rating just by saying they've planted so many trees in some other country, when really they're not allowed.
I mean, it really is. It really is nonsense. I mean, it's just bafflegad. But it's called. There is an actual term, greenwashing. All right. So being a good engineer, at least I think I am. I actually created a spreadsheet which saves between 1 and 7 tons of CO2 a year. And how did I do that? And I think you'll see on the next slide, it's available. It's still online somewhere. And I think the link is coming up. So what I did, again, I'll stop sharing just so I can be a little bigger on screen here. So what I did was I created a spreadsheet, and I said, if you live here on one side of your city and you work on the other side of the city, and you drive from, say, 30 kilometers, 20 miles to work, and you could move closer to work. So if you went from, say, 30 kilometers to 5 kilometers, if you just decided to move closer to work, you did nothing else, right? How much CO2 would you save over a year? And if you're driving a little Fiat, it's about 1.5 or 1.6 tons, if memory serves me. If you're driving like a Bentley, it's like 7 tons, right? So if you're a rich dude living in a rich part of whatever, Jacksonville, and you're driving 30 kilometers or 20 miles to work, maybe you could move closer to work, or move the work closer to you. I mean, if you're a rich dude, you could probably do that, right? And you can save between 1 and 7 tons of CO2 just by moving closer. Now,
Okay.
How much CO2 could you save if you have, say, a triplex here, and you put 1 or 2, maybe even 3 little workshops in the backyard where these folks could practice, run their yoga studio, run their physiotherapy practice, run their, realtor practice, or whatever it is? How much CO2 could you save there? Quite a bit, I would think.
Yeah, however much you would have been spending on your commute.
Yeah, and whether it's by bus, by train, by subway, or by car, by Uber. I think so a live work condition is a true environmental solution, all right, as opposed to the Rick Mercer, Stephen Harper BS that they were pushing some 10 or 15 years ago. So I'll put this when I get to put this on YouTube after we finish this session. I've got something called Green for Real. And Green for Real, the Rick Mercer phony 1-ton challenge. So I actually wrote something about it, and that'll appear in the links underneath the YouTube description. I don't know if that helps, but I do think that one of the things that will help Albrecht Property Management, your company, will be to try and be somewhat green if you can. And it might be very simple stuff. It just might be that you're doing more recycling, right? Or you're collecting rainwater and using it to water the flowers and the grass. I mean, just something that doesn't have to be expensive. And, a lot of my clients are doing this now, and it does help with your reputation, and you're trying to save the planet in a small way. All right.
Okay. Yep.
And if anybody at the city gives you trouble about these workshops, most of the cities and towns in North America now do allow a live work situation. So as long as the person who's using the workshop in the backyard is resident there, a home-based business is legal. Now, a lot of people who have these backyard workshops, if that tenant moves out, another tenant moves in but doesn't need the workshop, maybe they're renting it to somebody who's 3 blocks away. They're probably not supposed to, but that might happen.
Yep.
All right. But again, if the bylaw says, you have to live in that apartment to work in that workshop, and if it turns out to be somebody who's two doors over, I think that's okay.
think so as well.
All right, I hope so anyway. All right, so we've dealt with actually the number 4 thing. Let's now go to number 3 in your draft elevator pitch, okay? All right, so I'm going to show the elevator pitch on our screen here. So one of the things that Jordan, who's getting this property management company going, what I wanted him to do was to create a message map, to talk about, the message he's trying to get across, and then do an elevator pitch and actually record it on YouTube. And after he's done a few iterations of it and he's happy with it, to make that public and let people see it, because people today, whether they're landlords or tenants, they want to know more about the property management, and video is the way to go, I think. So I'll share my screen with you. All right, so do you want to take us through it?
Yeah, so I'll actually tell you how I drafted it. I won't take complete credit for everything. I found a skeleton that I wanted to use that gave me these 6 or 7 different sections that you should include in your elevator pitch. And then I kind of filled them out with the message that I wanted to portray in the pitch itself, how I wanted it to come across. And then I used ChatGPT to help me draft the first draft. And then I started working with it myself. And I thought it'd be a good idea to send to you. That way I have your input before I finalize it.
All right. So elevator pitches can last anywhere from 30 seconds, which is a typical message maps can be 15 to 30 seconds, and elevator pitches can be sort of like 1 to 2 minutes, right? If your elevator pitch is 5 minutes long, that's not an elevator pitch.
No, you're going to be talking to yourself halfway through.
You'll be talking to yourself halfway through. I love that. But the elevator pitch is really, really important. It's a selling tool, selling to tenants, selling to landlords, and frankly, just selling to the general public, selling to cities. And when you deal with building inspectors and whatever else, they'll find you on YouTube or TikTok or wherever you put it. And I've got a TikTok account now, and I'm going to do a few things on TikTok. I like TikTok too. So do you feel like you could try your elevator pitch here?
I could try it. I haven't even attempted it since I drafted it. Definitely give it a go.
Right. So do you have it on your screen? Because if you have it on your screen, then I will stop sharing, so you don't have to keep it on my screen, which is probably too small for you anyway. And you could try the elevator pitch, and I'll give you my comments.
Let's see. I'm just gonna make it a little smaller so I can still see everything. All right.
Are you enjoying learning the business? Are you having some fun?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's I feel like it's going to be a great fit for me.
I think so too.
At times I have been like a fairly modest person.
Yeah.
But I'm realizing that you really have to sell yourself and what you can do for the property owners and the individuals whose portfolios that you want to manage. Because at the end of the day, if you can't instill in them the value that you're capable of providing them, then there's absolutely no way that you're going to be able to get their business. So I'm really working on that more than anything. But yeah, I love it so far, and it's
So glad.
challenging me, so.
And the one thing that Canadians are really not very good at, that includes yours truly, is blowing their own horn. My Americans do not have any problem with that. I am the greatest, said Muhammad Ali. Remember the boxer, Muhammad Ali?
Yeah.
I am the greatest. I mean, I sting like a bee, or I float like a butterfly and sting like a bee. I mean, he was a poet and he was a boxer, and he was not afraid at the top of his lungs to tell everybody he was the greatest. And Americans, whether they're school kids or your age or my age, they don't have any problem with telling people around the world, we are the greatest.
Well, yeah, I'm starting to like have this theory that it's all based on like how we're perceived by the general public, and it's being kind of stigmatized to be conceited in any sense,
Yeah,
really. So
yeah.
when you do speak like that, you have that fear that everybody's going to look at you like you're just extremely self-absorbed.
Yeah.
But when you're trying to build something from the ground up and establish like a business, you really do have to, you can't lose track of everything else, but you have to be self-absorbed, and you have to see the value in yourself, and you have to be able to portray that. Otherwise, no one else is going to see it in you. So
Yeah, I get that, and I do struggle with that. I'm 71 now, and I still struggle with it. When I do a keynote speech, I actually have to, I only do 2 or 3 a year now. I did more when I was younger, but I have to go somewhere before I go on stage. Sometimes I go on stage in front of 500 people. The biggest one I've ever done is 12,000. But here, I don't know how many I've done, but lots. And I have to go away for a couple minutes, maybe 5 or 6 minutes, quiet place, and I have to say, Bruce, you know what you're talking about. You know this stuff. You know it better than anybody else in the audience. You have value. You can do it. And I have to psych myself up because, and again, my American friends don't have to do that. It's just natural. Ever since they were little boys or little girls, they were told the world is your oyster. You can do anything you want. That's white Americans. Black Americans are told, here's your little box, stay in there. But white American, oh my God, the world is your oyster. And Canadians, and not just Canadians, Australians, Brits, Kiwis, Germans, the Dutch, the Swedes, they're so modest, right? We struggle with that. So I think you're right. We have to do better at explaining our value proposition. Okay, now with all of that said, can you give us your elevator pitch now?
there we go. Hello, I'm Jordan Turner, and I'm the proud founder of Albrecht Management Solutions, the go-to firm for top-tier management of your real estate portfolio. Here at Albrecht Management Solutions, we understand your frustration all too well. You're tired of property managers who treat your valuable real estate portfolio like stale bread, with indifference and neglect. But have faith. The solution is refreshingly simple. Hire a property manager who treats your investments as if they were their very own. At Albrecht Management Solutions, our passion is your success. We're dedicated to maximizing the value of your properties, boosting profitability, and optimizing operational efficiency. Our target clients are the discerning individuals who understand the true value of their investments.
Wow.
They are the savvy real estate owners who recognize that success requires the expertise of a professional firm like ours. We specialize in the meticulous management of a diverse range of properties, including short-term accommodations, multi-residential buildings, mixed-use properties, and bustling commercial plazas. If you're content with watching your bottom line dwindle due to subpar management, then by all means, stick with the status quo. But if you're ready for a professional, competent, and caring approach to managing your portfolio, don't waste your most precious asset, time. If you're among those who care deeply about the future of your investments and demand excellence in property management, Albrecht Management Solutions is your trusted partner for prosperity. Reach out to Albrecht Management Solutions today, and let's transform your real estate investments into thriving assets once again.
Wow, that was really good. I'm impressed. Oh my God. Thank you, Chat GPT.
Yeah, absolutely.
And thank you, Jordan. That was excellent. There would be a couple of words I would probably add.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm blown away by how good that was. I think where you said, let me just see if I can find it, because I was listening very carefully. This is really good. Might have been earlier on. Yeah. So where you say at Albrecht Management Solutions, our passion is your success. That's great. We're dedicated to maximize the value of your properties, boosting profitability, and optimizing operational efficiency. I was hoping you could put in there two things: greening your portfolio.
Okay.
and boosting revenues. I don't want to use the word animation because nobody will know what the heck you mean by that. But, I would say greening your portfolio. And I would also say boosting your revenues in innovative ways. That's animation, right? So it's like, hey, listen, you got a detached garage there that's just got a bunch of junk in it. Let's get rid of that and turn it into a workshop and get $700 a month for it. It doesn't sound like very much, $700. In some cities it'd be $1,200 a month. But real estate is like the World War I, trench warfare. It's foot by foot, right? It's the little things.
Yeah, 100%.
One thing I don't think I heard in there was, or maybe it is in there. I think the word efficiency was used, right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah, operational efficiency. I think that's all you needed to say. So that is one area where I am horrible. I'm very good on the revenue side, but operational efficiency isn't one of them. But Dan Dore, who runs Dore Property Management, has hundreds of doors under management. Boy, I'll tell you, they are good at. They're not very good on the revenue side, boosting revenues through animation. That's not their deal. And that's something that you will do. But on the cost side, like for example, if they have 4 gas meters in a building and they only need 3, they can get rid of 1 gas meter, save $100 a month in connection fees, right?
Yep.
And they're really good at that. So that you've covered that, which is good. Did you say anything about? No, that's enough. Because when we talk about adding revenues, we might add revenues, like I said, by adding a backyard workshop or adding a coach house or something else, which also leads to project management, right? So you don't have to put that in there. Anytime you've said it through raising revenues, you've covered it, right?
Yeah, I thought about expanding, but I figured it'd be way too wordy. And
way too wordy. It is
once
really
you get into
good.
the agreement side of things, then you can start to discuss how you're going to
go on and on and on. I completely agree. It is wonderful, and I think you don't want to have a suit and tie on when you do it because nobody wears. Even my tech guys, well, especially my tech guys who I coach, they show up in cut off shorts and ratty t-shirt and they're worth millions of dollars,
I was thinking more just like a nice like tucked in checkered t-shirt, or not t-shirt, long sleeve fitted with like a pair of dress slacks and
that's all you need. And you might consider doing the elevator pitch standing up.
I was thinking about I have a couple of videographer friends. I was thinking about just having them do it while I'm walking out somewhere in the community.
Yeah. I would do my value proposition standing up because when you stand up, you speak differently.
Yep.
If you're slouching like that, you sound like this. When you're standing up, you're projecting. Hi, I'm
Prof it's the whole image of everything too, right?
Hi,
I'm more confident in yourself.
Here's my 15 second. Hi, I'm Prof Bruce. I'm a real estate investment and business coach. And if you want to change your life, not only your life, but the lives of your children and your grandchildren, you got to know something about real estate investment. All right. It has to form part of your life plan. And if you want to know how to do that and do it well, come and talk to me about coaching. That took maybe 12 or 13 seconds, right? So that's what I would do. And I would be standing up there and I would just have, I've got a shirt on here and a pair of black pants. And, these days, if I was in a suit and tie, especially at the age that I'm at, people say, oh, that's an old fogey. I am an old fogey, but I don't want to tell people that. Okay?
Yep.
All right. So we've dealt with that. All right. So the elevator pitch, man, that is good. And if somebody would show up and do it, and you might even be walking around. And, you notice I have a whiteboard here. You might even say, you might even put a few of those words just handwritten, just as a prop. Like props really work in elevator pitches. Okay. So if you were to, if there were 3 words that you wanted to, you might have, you want to maximize the value of your properties. You want to boost profitability. You want to optimize operational efficiency. You want to green your portfolio and you want to boost your revenues. Albrecht and Jordan, let me know. You understand? So you might actually have a report behind you with 4 points on it, like that guy who does the message map thing. And it would be kind of fun to do it that way. And so it would break it up. So it's not just a talking head.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So I think that, and you're a nice looking young man, so it'll be dynamic. And I would put it on YouTube, obviously, but I would put it on TikTok too.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, those are like
TikTok
the
is the
most
real deal.
utilized marketing and advertising platforms right now. So
Well, you know my daughter Jessica. I think you've met her, right?
yeah, so she does all the clothing and whatnot on.
It's unbelievable. You know, I put a video on YouTube. Most of them are unlisted, so they get like 5 views. But if I put one on YouTube that's public every once in a while, you know, if I get 1,000 views, that's a massive hit. I think the one that has the most views of mine is like 5,500. And so she calls me up. Oh, hey, Dad, I just put another one up. Oh, it's at 80,000 views, you know, 24 hours later. Oh, Dad, it's at 300,000 views on TikTok. I go, that's a little more than me.
Yeah.
Mind you, she's much better looking than her dad.
Celebrate our successes.
Well, she's really having a lot of success. She sells these wonderful, you know, fashion designs to fashion forward women in Michigan and California and other places too, but mostly to, you know, young women who have a lot of money to spend on themselves, right? And the results are great. She shares.
So what's her business called? I have a friend that may be interested in looking into that.
Proof Canada.
Proof?
Yeah, I'll see if I can find her website. I never know. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, here it is. So her website is proofcanada.ca. Ethically handmade with love. It's beautiful. And she does limited release drops, you know, and she'll drop, you know, some new designs, and it's a limited production run. She generally sells out in like, you know, 5 or 6 minutes.
Okay. Yeah.
It's incredible. I mean, you know.
Sorry, I just had a stray walk in thinking that we were a different establishment, so I was focusing on getting them to leave the office.
All right. But you can see, I mean, this stuff is fantastic. And these are young women who some of them are models, but some of them are just her clients who send in pictures and give her permission to use them, right?
Yep, for sure.
It's nice. And every once in a while she'll do a shoot in our house, and she'll bring some of her models here. I really like that.
No, of course you do.
I think it's great. You know, I love my wife, but it doesn't hurt to look.
It's nice to observe beauty.
It really is something fantastic. All right, so we got one more thing that I think we should get to, but before we get to the property management agreement, we should go through that. I wanted to ask you if we've done this yet. I don't remember, but I wanted to talk to you at some point, if we can, about a couple of other business models. I don't know if we've ever talked about, I call it the industrial home builder model. I don't know if
we haven't discussed that.
So did I show you what an animation looks like? You know, this is a house of one of my clients. He's an HVAC guy. He built a workshop in the backyard, so he has that live work condition. Did we talk about that?
I believe I've seen this photo before, but I'm not 100% certain.
I don't want to repeat anything. Then there's this model here, which I wanted to talk to you about, which is how to take old industrial buildings and make them over by putting in small workshops. Did we talk about that?
We discussed a guy who took a warehouse and just completely put like sistered units throughout the whole thing.
There you go. Yeah, so we've done that. These are the units that he did.
Yeah, that's units right there.
Okay, we've seen that. Have we talked about Airbnb arbitrage?
So now that I believe was something that you wanted to discuss. We briefly covered it, went over what it was, and I think you mentioned the revenues that certain individual was bringing in.
It's something that I'm not saying that you should do it, but Airbnb arbitrage, this is a guy, Aaron Bay, who coaches one of my clients who, you know, he has 2 coaches, maybe more for all I know, but he has one real estate investment coach. probably one life coach, and he has an Airbnb arbitrage business. Anyway, he shared with me the revenues. This is from last year.
Yep.
In 1 month, they booked $351,000 in Airbnb arbitrage, of which he paid out to his landlords, I think $235,000, and left him with $115,000 in income for himself through Airbnb arbitrage. It was really something else. And if it's okay with you, what I thought we would do next time, next month, I guess, in October, if you could put Airbnb and Airbnb arbitrage, I think that's worthwhile looking at, because it's an important way for you to create your own clients. There may be some of your friends who have a duplex somewhere. They're probably not making very much money, and you might consider saying to them, look, as long as it's legal in Belleville, which I think it is now. I mean, you have to license yourself, but you might consider assisting them to blow up their revenues with some short-term rentals. The good news about Belleville, by the way, is that the city of Belleville is so tough on Airbnb that people are discouraged about it.
Oh, it's difficult. I have a friend who I've been kind of fighting for and appealing the decision of, they chose not to give her a license. And they're being pretty difficult about it.
Why did they decide not to give her a license?
So, I mean, by all means, in the bylaw, it states that there can't be two Airbnbs within 100 meters of one another.
Yes.
So now I appealed it on the basis that it's 96 meters. There's only 4 meters. I was just trying to appeal to their like common sense, but also it's one of the most beautiful heritage buildings in Belleville, and the statement for the city of Belleville in their I forget what document it is, the official plan for the city discusses how they want to boost tourism, and they want to do whatever they can to help these individuals prosper who are catering to tourists in town. How that the first properties that should be utilized as these short-term accommodators and boutique hotels are the historical
100%.
buildings that we have, because of how beautiful they are.
This building is not downtown though, right?
No, it's just on the Old East Hill.
Yeah.
And so they chose not to rescind their original decision. However, the house that was preventing her from receiving her license to operate, we now know that they've chosen not to operate as a short-term accommodator anymore.
Oh, wow.
But the city won't do anything about it.
What do you mean they won't do anything about it?
Yeah, so they won't approach these owners. So I'm gonna have to draft a letter, contact the owners of the property who have explicitly told us, well, one of her friends, that they are no longer looking for short-term accommodations, booking them. They're focusing on medium and long-term. And when you look at the platforms like Airbnb and VRBO, it's completely booked solid for the next year because they're using it as a long-term accommodation.
Right. So don't give up. And would she allow you to manage that, do you think?
Oh yeah, so this is the same woman who I'm working with and potentially going to manage her the cottage that she owns.
Oh, fantastic. So you're going to manage a cottage that she owns. Whereabouts is the cottage?
It's west of Bancroft. I forget the name of the actual. I think it's It's by Northeast Bay. So if you know where Northeast Bay is, it's a little lake by Northeast Bay that it's on.
And how big is the cottage? I mean, the land that it sits on.
Oh, it's fairly large. I've actually been there to take a look, and she generates anywhere from $9,000 to $12,000 a month throughout the summer from it.
Fantastic.
I mean, they bought this cottage and they put a fair bit of money into it. It's a very nice cottage, and it has an outbuilding that's just a games room, so pool table, ping pong table, darts, everything. They've done a great job, and it's on, I believe, 18 acres of forested land.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's also sistered to Crown Land, so they have no real neighbors outside of it.
Oh,
And
my
it
God.
has its own dock and a creek that you can go paddleboarding and canoeing on. So it's a really beautiful place. It's a
So,
beautiful piece of
Jordan,
property.
what is her name?
Her name's Christina.
Yeah, I think you've mentioned her to me before. So, next week I've invited you to, one of my webinars that I'm giving, I think, the 26th, right?
Yep.
At noon. I'm going to go over some very simple models. This is something I'm putting on one of my properties out in BC. Can you imagine on her 18 acres if she added something like this?
I discussed this to her after you spoke with me about that.
So
Yep.
would you mind asking Christina if she'd like to join the webinar next week? She'll learn a lot.
Yeah, I'll ask her for sure.
All right. But imagine if you put something like that, and it would add I mean, I don't want to tell you what it would add on short-term rentals, but it would add a lot. There's one other thing that you should tell Christine. She might consider also getting herself an ice fishing hut.
Okay.
So some of my clients, and some of these ice fishing huts are absolutely beautiful. I mean, I'll see if I can find. I have some on my computer. I don't know if I can find them in a reasonable amount of time, but some of these ice fishing huts are unbelievably beautiful. And what's interesting about it is we have started to do some really cool stuff with these. Maybe I won't be able to find it in some reasonable period of time, Dan. And what we started to do with our ice fishing huts is obviously, create beautiful, cabins that are used in the. Oh, come on. Sorry about that. I get frustrated if I can't find things in like 1 second. Let's see, can I find? Oh, look at that. I'm better than I thought. I'll show you a couple of what my clients have done with theirs. Just for the record here. So here is I'll make it a little bigger. Here's the interior of one of my clients. They have these ice fishing huts. They are absolutely beautiful, and they rent incredibly well. People come in here, they play cards, they have a few drinks, they smoke a little bit of weed. You know what these are, right?
Yep, those are the holes.
Yeah, they do that. And one of my clients has 62 of them.
Wow.
Yeah, and he said the greatest part about the ice fishing huts is you don't pay any rent. You just haul them out on the ice, usually toward the end of December, and you haul them off the ice usually towards the end of March, beginning of April. You have to plate them, which is a one-time expense. I don't know what it costs to plate them, probably $50 or something like that. But that's the only expense you have. They have internet. These days he uses Elon Musk's Starlink, which is very good internet. So you could be in there, and he rents them typically from Thursday until Sunday. And he rents them the other days of the week too, but mostly they go Thursday to Sunday throughout the season. But here's the really cool thing. After the season is over, he hauls them back on shore and he rents them as summer cabins.
That's amazing.
It's amazing. So, so Christina might consider a couple of those domes, but she might also consider buying a couple of these beautiful ice fishing huts, maybe one to start with, haul them out on the ice. People will come and they'll spend the weekend there. Now you rent the whole thing together as one, right? So the domes and the cottage and the ice fishing hut, it's all one, right? You don't want to have, 3 different guests because they'll start fighting. Human beings are terrible. They fight over anything, right?
Instead of just partying together, they prefer to.
Yeah. So no, but some of the best holidays I've ever been. In fact, I think the best holidays I've ever been on are where I go with my friends, right? So my wife and I, and maybe 2 other couples or 3 other couples, we go together. We rent a place. Another of my clients in the Caribbean have over 300 Airbnbs scattered throughout the Caribbean.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Mostly on Aruba and another small island. There's 2 main islands, but they've got a few others, but over 300 units. And what they're finding is the demand for accommodation now that will accommodate multiple families has gone way up, right? I mean,
Yeah, because all families want to travel together now.
yeah, I mean, so for example, if you and a girlfriend and a couple of buddies and their girlfriends or wives, you went together, the guys will go golfing, the girls will go shopping, the girls will have a glass of wine, the guys will drink beer, the guys will watch some sports, the girls will watch, The Notebook. It's fun, and then you get together and you have a party, and then you have your individual rooms. So if she had a couple of domes on the deck like I showed, and she had a nice fishing hut, and again, it's a year-round thing because you pull it off the ice. It's not just an extra. And if you have any of the men who snore, guess where they go?
Out on the ice.
Well, they go out of the ice, or if it's they go into the bunkies, the cabins, the domes. You get rid of them, right? Because like one of my daughters is married to a man. He's a great guy, but he snores like a freight train. Mm-hmm. And so we're putting a bunkie in our backyard here. So when Jeremy visits, him and his young boy Leighton, my grandson, they go into the bunkie. Okay. Because a little boy, it doesn't bother him if his dad snores. Yep. But this house, I mean, it reverberates. It's like that. Sure, yeah. All right. So ask Christine if she'd like to attend the webinar. She's more than welcome. Okay.
Okay.
So Jordan, what I was hoping then is you could put on our agenda, and it's really important for me to keep the agenda. I keep stressing that. So next time we get together, the agenda will include Airbnb arbitrage, but there is another part of this that I want to show you, which is there's another arbitrage which might even be more interesting for you than Airbnb arbitrage, and that's industrial arbitrage. Yeah. That's something that is unique to me. Airbnb arbitrage, that's well-known concept, and I've known about it for a long time, but it's certainly not unique to me. But there is another industrial model where you don't have to have any money, but you can make substantial amounts of money. It's called industrial arbitrage, and it is a riff on that industrial model I talked about, but it is an arbitrage model. And if you could put those 2 things on the agenda, and just because I'm getting a little bit tired, I started very early this morning, and I've been going straight up. We'll do, if it's okay with you, we'll do the property management agreement together next time.
Yeah, absolutely.
I apologize, but I really hope to see in the next couple of weeks this video. It's excellent. I think it'll be very popular on TikTok. You get a few views on YouTube, but you get a lot more on TikTok. Okay. And send it to me. So industrial arbitrage, Airbnb arbitrage, and the property management agreement, at least those 3 things. And we'll have some other stuff, I'm sure.
Sounds good.
I really am impressed. I really enjoyed today.
So did I.
I'll see you next week.
Take care, Bruce. Bye.